Okay, this class is how to juggle. Everybody's in the right class? All right, so we'll go ahead and start since I went over on the last one anyway. All right, talent is overrated. I think I have a handout for this um, somewhere. There it is. Looks like this. The guy slipping and falling. All right, first one starts with, who do you think you are? All right, so the reason for the title, talent is overrated, is I think that a lot of times, myself included, we can look at people. We have a guy in our church. In fact, he's been to this church before and taught some music here. Brother Aaron Boggs. So shout out to him if he's listening. But he is so talented. He can play like any instrument in the world, I think. This is not my presentation, but it looks good though. But he, like, one time I remember somebody brought a violin to school and they were trying to figure out how to tune it or something. He had never touched a violin in his life, and he's like, "Oh, I think it's like this," and he starts playing the violin. So he's just, those are the kind of people who make you want to like just spit on them, you know. So he's super talented. He's very, very talented. And so we can look at those people, we put them up on a pedestal and be like, man, I wish I was talented like that. So an example that's closer to home is I have 3 kids, and one of my sons is 16, and he's talented, and he plays music. So he plays the drums, he plays the piano, he plays the bass, and he plays the organ. And he has thought about the guitar, and so he'll probably learn how to play that. But he started out on the drums, I don't know, a couple years ago, and he kind of just maybe fiddled around on the piano a little bit. But the thing is I am at home with him, so I get to see. And he does have natural talent. He definitely does have natural talent. But he spends hours practicing. I mean, hours. I'll come home from church Wednesday night, and he's already at home, and he'll have the piano. And he sings, and you guys might not know that, but he sings, but he doesn't want anybody to know. And so he'll go home, and he'll open the piano's by the front window, and we live really close to the church. He'll open the blinds so that he can see whenever somebody comes in the driveway. He'll practice singing at home by himself, and then he'll stop when we come home. But my point is that yes, he's got some natural talent, but he practices a lot, and that far outweighs any talent that he might have. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit more. But so a lot of times we have feelings of inadequacy, and we feel like, I'm not qualified. I couldn't do that. Like, oh man, look at Brother Booker up there doing that. But look at Brother Tyler Hodge doing all those motions. I couldn't do that. That's not me. I'm not talented. I can't do that. But I would challenge that a little bit. So I want to tell, does everybody here, I would expect that maybe everybody here, but does everybody here know Brother Ken Bow? Everybody here know Brother Ken Bow, preacher? Okay, so not everybody. But anyway, so Brother Ken Bow, he's a preacher, a very high level, high caliber preacher. He was at our church not too long ago. Well, I guess it was last year. He was preaching at a conference at our church. And I do the graphics for the titles. And so I asked him, I said, hey, do you have a title? And he didn't have one yet. And so he told me, he said, I'm so nervous, brother. And this is a man that, I mean, it's like he's like Brother Larry Booker status. I mean, he's a preacher renowned, and I think he was kind of maybe joking a little bit. But I thought, here's this guy that's he's phenomenal. I mean, when he introduces people, he's phenomenal, and he's like, I'm so nervous. Now, there's some people that don't get nervous, and they should, and so there are those people too. All right, so I stole this from Seth Godin. He's an author, but the lifeguard hack. All right, so if you never heard of this, this is a really good illustration. Is imagine that you are drowning. Do you know how to swim? You don't know. Okay, so you're drowning. So imagine that you're drowning and you're struggling, you're trying to get above water and you can't breathe and you just, well, if I'm the lifeguard, excuse me, if I'm the lifeguard, you don't really care if I have a whistle or not. You don't care what kind of clothes I'm wearing. You don't care if, my training is, if I did my most recent training. You just need help now, right? You don't really care whether I'm super, super qualified. Brother Chris Bradshaw just walked in, and so that's, he's not a lifeguard, but that's what he does. He saves people. So they don't. So, but they don't care, what you're wearing. They don't care what you look like. They need help right now. And so I would challenge you is, sometimes we feel inadequate or we feel like we're not qualified, but flip it around. You are needed. You are needed. I just recently had a talk with a gentleman that his son has been coming to our youth group. I'm youth leader at our church as well. And so his son has been coming to, and we had a little incident and he wasn't coming for a little bit. And he kind of got in trouble. And so he called me and he talked to me and he asked me, he said, so how is he at like church services when we go to youth rallies or whatever? And I said, oh, he's okay. He hangs out in the back. He doesn't really do much, but he doesn't go to our church. And so I said, I haven't really pushed him a whole bunch. And like, if it's our young people, I'm like, hey, get up front, And so he said, yeah, he does that at our church too. And they're a Hispanic family, so they go to a Spanish church. And he's like, he does that at our church too. And I try not to push him. So I talked to him a little bit, and I don't know him really well, so I was trying to be careful. But I said, I understand not trying, you don't want to push him away or whatever, you want to have a relationship with him. I said, but if you don't, somebody's going to push him. He's 15 years old. I said, if you don't do it, somebody is going to push him. And so, and he was like, yeah, that's true, and anyway, long story short, they are going to make an effort to, and they've already have, they're going to make an effort to bring him. So he teaches at their church, and it's their Trinity, but they've been to our church before and they love it. And he teaches a class at their church. So he's like, I can't, but my wife will bring him on Sunday nights and I'll bring him on Wednesdays. And I want him to go to your church, which is pretty cool, pretty awesome. But I said, okay, well, with that in mind, I'll push him. I'll talk to him. I'll start pushing him. And so back to the lifeguard analogy is you're needed. If you don't do it, somebody else is going to, quote, save your kids. And so we have to step up and we have to save kids. And so, and then the other thing with that is, if one thing to overcome that feeling of inadequacy or that you're not good enough to do it or that you're not talented enough is focus on those that you're helping. Don't focus on yourself. If I come here to speak and like, oh, do they like me? Do they think I'm cool? It totally changes how I operate versus, can I help them? Can I help that person? Can I give them something, that they can take home and so if you focus on how can I help these kids? You're the lifeguard. How can I help these kids? Instead of like, well, do I have the right lifeguard outfit on? You're going to take away my presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I feel so much better now. Okay, we're done. But yeah, so if you think like that, a lifeguard, if you're focused on, okay, how can I help these kids? How can I make a difference? Then you can overcome that feeling of inadequacy. You're not worried about how inadequate you might be. All right, reverse engineering. See how good I'm doing on time right now? Reverse engineering. So creative works, this is my own note, creative works can be reverse engineered. When you see cool decor or you see an incredible event like this one, it can be examined and it can be reverse engineered. And so a lot of times, the reason I put that in there is a lot of times we see something that's just amazing and fantastic. And we like, I can never do that, because going back to, I'm not talented and I'm inadequate, so I can never do that. But reverse engineer it. And so there's talent that can be reverse engineered. And so everybody heard of the comedian? Forgive me if I don't think he's like bad. He's not Christian, but Jerry Seinfeld. Okay, so he's famous comedian. He's old, old. I think he had a TV show or something. But anyway, I read something about him that I really like, and I know probably almost all comedians do this, but I I really liked that he was like articulating. I think he wrote a book about it, but he goes into his process for like writing a joke. And so many times you see these, and there's many of these people are, I mean, we could give Brother Bradshaw a key word and he'll just spit out the jokes. He's got all kinds of dad jokes. So yeah, we'll illustrate that in a little bit. But so those kind of people are quote unquote talented. They have this natural, talent. And so Jerry Seinfeld, you look at him and it just seems, I mean, I think he's funny. Some people may not. I think he's really funny. But he goes through this process and he writes it out. And he talks about even like, well, I first wrote it this way, but then I changed the word to this. I wish I had an example, but then I changed the word to this because it's funnier. And so he like is dissecting it and analyzing it and coming up with the material and then rehearsing it. And then, of course, they even go as far as, presenting it to a smaller audience and then go on a bigger stage. But anyway, so it can be broken down. And then you practice it. So sometimes what happens is people who are, quote, talented at something, they never were in the beginning. And to go back to my son analogy with practicing, and they never considered themselves to be talented, but through practice they become. So an example is we do, of course, Sunday school every week, and then we have a few events throughout the year, but we have a big event towards the end of the year at Christmas time, and me and another brother are the main characters in the event, and there's all kinds of things that happen through the event. It's about an hour and a half long, but we do a bunch of acting in the event, and we act as these main characters, and then we have some different characters that we do. But it's like all kinds of time in the spotlight or mic'd up, and there's a lot of people there, and we do it multiple nights, the show. But when we started that in 2008 is when we started. I wasn't on stage. And when I tell people from our church that, they can't believe it because I'm on stage so much in the show now. And so the thing is I am, and people don't believe me when I say this, but I am way more comfortable backstage. That's why I named my podcast Backstage. I'm way more comfortable backstage, organizing stuff, writing stuff, making it happen, directing people, okay, it's time for you to go now. That's where I thrive. And people don't believe me, but I'm on stage so much. But it's because I ended up doing a little bit and I was okay at it and practice, got a little bit better at it and so on. And so now it's, where I have to thrive. I'm losing my voice. Okay, excuse me. So through practice and just doing it, you can overcome some of that inadequacy and reverse engineer some of that stuff that you see. Okay, success can be reverse engineered as well. So if we see a kids ministry that is growing, that is thriving, kids are getting the Holy Ghost, we need to look at what are they doing and how can we apply it. This is how I met Brother Booker. So I don't know if you remember Brother Booker, but my kids and I came to this conference a few years ago, and we saw it, I don't know, online or something, or I think I subscribed to the website and got the notice. And so we came, and you came out, shook our hands, didn't have a clue who we were, super friendly. We had registered, got our name tags, came in there. And so through that, I got his number somehow, and I called you just a few days later, and we ended up talking I asked if he had a few minutes, and he was gracious enough to give me like an hour. And so we were talking, but one of the main things is they had kids getting the Holy Ghost in their Sunday school, and I wanted that. And so I called him, and then of course we talked about a lot more than that. But I called him because I wanted to know how are you doing this? And so just recently I talked to a brother that spoke here a couple of years ago. I just talked to him about bus ministry and outreach. How do you do it? What are some key things that you do? And so if you see something that is successful, you come to events like this, is reverse engineer it. Ask people, don't be afraid to ask. Like when we do the lunch thing later, like Brother Booker said, sit at different tables. Ask people, what do they do? And then the final thing about reverse engineering, I know this is a lot on reverse engineering. It just sounds cool, so I want to say it. A lot of things about, another thing about reverse engineering is, this even makes it sound cooler. Elon Musk talks about this thing called first principles thinking. And so first principles, long story, he was trying to get a rocket made or something, or order a rocket. It was way too expensive. So he went all the way back to the basics and built it himself. So if you see something that's super cool, is look at it. So we're going to try to do, Dad, you need to look at this because we're going to try to build, we're going to try to build one of these. We're going to try to do a do-it-yourself operable partition because these things are really expensive. And so we're going to try to make one. And so the way to do that, we've already started doing some research, is you got to reverse engineer it. Take it to the first principles. Take it to its most basic parts. But that can be done with, that's building. That can be done with a concept too. Is, you want to create a Sunday school like that one over there. And of course, every church is unique and it doesn't mean that you need to do a Sunday school different. But if you want kids to get the Holy Ghost, reverse engineer. What are they doing? And a lot of times there's things that are not quantifiable. Like you don't point at like, oh, it's because they did a candy rain. That's why all those kids are getting the Holy Ghost. No, probably not. But it might be contributing towards, getting the kids there and getting them engaged. And so it's kind of like asking the why, what is it, 5 times, why? Well, because of this. Well, why that? Because, so that's kind of like the whole idea behind the first principles thing. Okay. Moving on to the next section. See, I'm doing awesome on my time, I think. I don't know. It feels like I am. Jump in with both feet. So jump in with both feet. So I read this thing a long time ago. Navy SEALs don't dip their toe in the water. So jump in with both feet. Just dive into it. So again, going back to the lifeguard hack. What's your name? Zane's drowning over here. And so Zane's over there flailing and he's drowning. And I'm like, Zane, am I wearing the right uniform? He doesn't care. Zane, should I take my flip-flops off or should I leave them on? He doesn't care. Zane, how's the water? Is it cold or is it? Oof. He doesn't care. I'm the lifeguard. I need to save him. And so when you're getting ready to do an endeavor in Sunday school and you're saying, okay, we're gonna start this bus ministry, or probably most of you have one, I don't know, you're gonna take it to the next level, is jump in with both feet. And here's the thing, is if you fail, if your idea fails, and I'm probably jumping ahead of myself, but if your idea fails, that's okay. I have failed so many times. If your idea fails, that's okay. Because otherwise, if you don't give it your all, if you don't jump in with both feet, you're just wasting your time. Because if you don't give it your all and it fails, there's that doubt. You're never really sure if it failed because the idea was bad or because you didn't give it your all. So to really test it, you got to go back and do it again. So you're completely wasting your time. So if you don't think it's going to work, you're right. You got to just jump in. So key is to kind of do enough research on the front end to know, that it's a decent idea, and then just go all in, jump in with both feet, and be honest with yourself. Did I really give it my all? Did I really give it everything? And then step outside of your comfort zone and this is jumping in with both feet, and this is hard. But embrace ideas that are not quote you. So we have a team of people that we work with, and my pastor and I work pretty close together, and we're in some ways we're actually opposite in how we approach things. He's kind of really spatial and like, let's just go and get this done. I'm really analytical, like, well, let's plan it out first. So we make a great team in that regard. But in some ways we're a lot alike. Like if something needs set up or happen, we'll stay till 1 o'clock in the morning and do it. But there's a gentleman that we recently got on a team. I got to be really vague because we're live streaming here. He is not that way. So it's like, I don't know what his bedtime is, but if it's 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, all right, well, I'll see you guys tomorrow. We're like, what? We're like in the middle of this. We got another 4 hours here. And not him. But the thing is he's extremely valuable. He is very valuable. And so I have learned, and it used to be, oh God forgive me, that I would kind of write that person off. Not him in particular, but just somebody that couldn't fit into my box of like, you can't commit to staying here and you're not committed. What's wrong with you? And so I've learned, though, that people don't have to be like me. In fact, it's probably better if they're not all like me. People don't have to be like me to be valuable and to be valued. And so with that, stepping outside of your comfort zone is many times people will have ideas, and I'm just like, that's a dumb idea. That is crazy. But I have to check myself and say, okay, hold on. Let me really think about this idea. So Brother Joey Boggs, he's an evangelist. He's out of our church. And we just were talking recently, and he said something about that. He said, in some of our events and stuff, he said, I come up with all these crazy ideas. And Brother Gabe has to say, okay, yeah, we can't do that. That's not going to work. But, one of the things I say in like when I'm talking about decor or something is a lot of times when we're brainstorming, I'll say, imagine that we have $1 million budget. And they're like, oh yeah, if we had $1 million budget, what would we do? And so I say that not because we're ever going to, well, maybe we will. Not that we'll ever have $1 million budget, but I say that to open people's horizons. Like, what could we do with $1 million? And so what happens is we get some crazy ideas, but it opens our minds. Like, if you're thinking like, okay, what can we do right now? What can we do here now that would be cool? And you might think of like, well, maybe we could, I know, let's tape off the floor. We'll have a hopscotch. Kids will love that. Nothing bad about hopscotch, but they'll love that. Let's do a hopscotch. Okay, yeah, that'll be cool. That'll be our interactive piece. But then if you have $1 million budget, you're not thinking hopscotch. Let's build a roller coaster. Lynn, let's have a roller coaster. Well, that doesn't cost $1 million. So I'm saying, but here's where that goes, Brother Bradshaw, is I say, well, we can't build a roller coaster because we don't have a budget. But instead of hopscotch, maybe we could build a playground. And that's what we do. And he's talking about slide. We do a slide, almost every theme we do some kind of slide. And so it opens up your ideas. And so all of that to say this is jump in with both feet, step outside your comfort zone, is get with people that don't think like you on purpose, and they'll expand your horizons, and you can do more than what you think you can. And I'm trying to keep this on talent is overrated. Okay, then this is kind of, I hope I'm not like saying the same thing again, but throw everything at it and see what sticks. So do everything that you can. And so this goes back to the unquantifiable thing, is if you are trying to get kids to be engaged in altar service, there are so many different avenues that are not something, and unquantifiable is kind of a big word, huh? But it means you can't point at it and say it's that one thing. So I said the candy rain earlier. But if you have candy rain and you wear costumes and you have really cool decor, and you have really cool action songs. And so there's all of these elements that you know are good ideas because Brother Booker does them. And so you know that they're good. And so you have all of these items that are unquantifiable. You can't point it, oh, it was because we did that. It was because of it. And man, I'm getting sidetracked. But the other thing is, don't get fixated on it was because of that. And then forget all this other stuff and be like, it was because of the candy rain. So we're just going to do candy rains every week. No, don't do that. You got it all works together. It all works, hand in hand. So, but anyway, so throw everything at it and see what sticks. So my son he's trying to find a job. He's only 16 and nobody wants to hire a 16-year-old. It seems like, and he can outwork many 18-year-olds. But he's trying to find a job. So the other day he was asking me, I was helping him with a resume, and he was asking me. He said, well, this one place said they want to interview me or whatever. And so what if this place calls back? I'm like, hey, it doesn't matter. If you have 3 places calling you and you're trying to figure out which one to choose, that's a good position to be in. So just go for it, and man, apply everywhere that you can, and then you're in a way better position if you're trying to make the decision instead of waiting for somebody to call, And so I think this is something I learned from my pastor, is just approach it from every angle that you can, throw everything at it, and then you can see what works. And again, it doesn't mean the candy rain worked and throw everything else away. But if you throw everything at it, like, okay, we're going to do, I can't think of a good example. Okay, we're going to try to have our kids be more engaged in the Sunday school itself. So we're going to do a skit that's funny. We're going to do an object lesson. We're going to do a puppet show, and we're going to do an action song. And I don't know, just you throw everything at it that works, and pay attention to what seems to work the best. What is working the best? And one of the things I like to do is don't throw away all the others, but focus on something. Even with our big event, I'll say, like, okay, this year we're focused on costumes. And so it doesn't mean we're not doing the other stuff. We are doing the other stuff, but we want to bring that up another notch. We want to bring that up to the next level. And so focus, throw everything at it, see what sticks. Okay, I do have another segment. What time are we going to? Does anybody know? I always ask that. 3:50. Okay, so we got like 20 minutes-ish. Okay, so, Oh, 22. Okay, oh, thank you. 22 and a half. Okay, so, yeah. Before I go to the next thing, because I almost forgot in the last class, and I'm going to make notes here, is I do want to open this up to any kind of questions that anybody might have. And so does anybody have just, and I can ask some leading ones, but does anybody have any questions regarding any of this? Yes.
I like what you said about throw stuff and see what sticks, and don't eliminate everything when you find something that does.
Yes.
What is an indicator that something's not sticking?
An indicator that something's not sticking. That's good. Sometimes it surrounds what the investment is too. And so what I mean by that is if it's taking, let's say we're going to try puppet shows, and because I'm about to kind of up our puppet show game at our Sunday school. So let's say we're trying to do puppet shows, and I'm writing a script for it, and then I got to get some people to do the acting. I'm thinking of doing pre-recorded ones. So we got to pre-record the voices and the sound effects and the music, and we do it, and we say, okay, we're gonna try this for a month or something, and kids are falling asleep in the puppet show. Well, I guess if kids are falling asleep in the puppet show, you might first of all just say it doesn't work. But the other thing is looking at the return on investment. If I'm investing all of this time into it and it's not working, then this might be a time to either cancel it or say, okay, we need to take a heavy look at this and reevaluate what we're doing, and turn it on its ear, so to speak. Do you have something? Okay. No, you only get one. That's good, brother. I don't really, but so one thing is I work with 5 through 11, and some of that might change, but right now we do kind of a one classroom, 5 through 11, and so that's what I'm working with. But we do on a more of a micro level use a system of what worked, what didn't work. And what I mean by that is we have practices on Sunday mornings before Sunday school. So 8:30, we have a half an hour practice. And so oftentimes our Sunday school is kind of built, we have a script, but our script is not dialogue, it's bullet points. And so our Sunday school is built on ad lib. We're very heavy on skits and drama and themes and that kind of thing. So we'll, in practice, we will ad lib, and we'll use that time as our what worked, what didn't work. And so sometimes we'll be like, oh, that was really funny. Say that in the thing. We did that last year, in fact, in this conference. But we'll be like, oh, that was really funny, say that. Or that was really funny, don't say that. Depending on what it is. So a side note with that, one time, so as anybody that's been in Sunday school ministry for any length of time knows, comedy can be something you just slip into and get stuck in. So we, one year, this was a disaster, kind of. I mean, it wasn't a disaster, but it was bad. We were doing the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. And we had our actors somehow, I don't know what was going on, but we were getting Jesus up there to crucify, and it turned into a comedy. I know, don't shoot me. But it was like they were being silly, and I don't know if all the kids noticed it, but the actors, I noticed it. I was like, no, time out. But we had on the front row, there was a couple girls bawling their eyes out because they were touched by the story. They understood the story, and they were just bawling their eyes out. And so, as you know, we just had Easter. So I reminded our staff of that story. I said, hey, this is not a comedy story. This is a drama. And so that's on a kind of a micro level. I know that doesn't really answer your question, but we use that as a system of what worked, what didn't work on a more of a micro level. And we will sometimes evaluate Sunday school. Well, always evaluate Sunday school, but sometimes we'll try to find what is quantifiable and say the reason why that didn't work, and so we can change it. Another thing with that is I will, if I'm in the back, maybe waiting for a next segment or whatever, often what I will do, and my son usually runs the AV, so I'll make comments to him, but we'll have maybe actors up front, and I'll be like, look at the kids, and maybe like they're so engaged with what's happening up front. Or sometimes, just not too long ago, we had 3 actors up front. That's a lot, to have happening. They're all in costume, and they all have mics, so you can be understood. And the kids were just like, messing around, and I mean, some of them were looking, but I was like, so what is it? Why aren't they paying attention? So I'll try to analyze some of that and bringing it down to its smallest parts. One of the things we learned a few years ago is we needed mics. So our pastor came up with his nephew. It was his nephew's first time in Sunday school. In our Sunday school, kids' first time, a lot of times they get scared because we have so much going on, fog machines and music and sound effects, a lot of action happening. And so sometimes they get scared. So he thought he would sit in on Sunday school. We had a visiting preacher. And so, in fact, on this particular one, when the kids came, we have what's called dynamic opening. When the kids come in to be seated, we want something happening. And so we had We had people sword fighting. I referenced this in the other class. We had people sword fighting, and they were like, stepping over kids, like, oh, and sword fighting. It was just action happening all around. So I asked him for feedback afterward, and he said it was awesome. It was good. He said, I don't see anything that anybody could complain about. It was incredible. He said, except for one thing. He said, you need mics. He said, your next fundraiser, whatever you do for money, he said, you need to invest in mics, because I couldn't understand what you were saying. So that's something I learned a long time ago, is that if kids don't understand what's going on, and even now we have mics, but sometimes it's too abstract. If they don't understand what is going on and what's happening, they become disengaged. They're just like, yeah, I don't get it. Nicodemus coming to talk to Jesus. Okay, what? Born again? Yeah. So make sure that they can understand you, and make sure that they're engaged, and watch that. Okay, anything else? Other questions, comments? And you can have more than one. All right. So the art of the start. Let me reset my fancy timer here. The art of the start. One of the key things, as everyone probably knows, is just to get started. So you can write in your notes, if you are taking notes, start today. And I mean that literally, in that at least you can take some notes or something on what you're going to start. And so I think, Brother Booker, you can do that thing that you do at the end, where we got to write down something. Yeah, okay, so that's good. So the art of the start. A lot of times, I think that many of us can go to conferences like this, or even a conference where they're preaching or whatever, or we can go to a seminar of some kind, maybe even just on something else, the sales or whatever. We can go to these and we can get all inspired. Man, I mean, I got inspired by Brother Bradshaw. That was awesome. And so we can get inspired. And I brought my huge notebook, and I took some notes from your lesson. I filled up 2 whole pages of this thing. So, but we can get inspired and like, oh, that was so good. That was so good. And then we walk away. We don't change anything. What do we have to show for it, so to speak? And here's what I'm guilty of. I read a lot. I'm reading 5 books right now. And so I read a massive amount of material. I constantly read. And so there's no shortage of information, right? This conference, it's like taking a sip from a fire hose. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff. But here's what I'm guilty of. I wish I had a photographic memory, because what I'm guilty of is, in the back of my mind, I don't even articulate this, but in the back of my mind, I'm reading something and like, oh, this is good. I'm going to come back to this and, apply this. You don't ever come back, especially if you're like me, I'm on to the next thing. You don't ever come back to it. And so, like, we're streaming this, and the videos are going to be available later, right? The videos are going to be available. So, but pretend like you can't come back and watch it, because you probably won't. So pretend like you can't come back and watch it. And I mean, not that you'd be watching mine, but if you can't re-reference it, then what are you going to do to change now? What are you going to do to start today? And that's the biggest thing about this whole thing about talent is overrated. How to just do it. And I'm not bragging on myself at all, but sometimes people look at, we have these crazy themes and this decor and awesome stuff, and we do these dramas, and they're like, this is so cool. It wasn't always cool. We just started. I mean, this Christmas production, I have like video clips of it. It's pretty incredible. I mean, I will brag on that, because it's not just me. It's pretty incredible. It's awesome. We have all these lights, and it's just amazing, the decor. But we started out, we had this like 6-foot tall black curtain, just enough so people could kind of duck behind it. And that's how we started. And it wasn't cool. We had a spotlight that you held like a hunting light, and like, okay. And then we got really advanced, and we got a strobe light that we go up front and shine it, and turn it on. So we've come a long ways, and so start today, and yeah, it might not be as cool as some of these other Sunday schools that you see. You might not be able to do all the motions just like Brother Tyler Hodge. I mean, he's got some really cool dance moves. You might not be able to do a puppet show like Brother Ray does, or some of the object lessons like Brother Booker does. But start somewhere, and it's there's talent, but the thing is Brother Booker. I'm sorry, I'm going to use you. The thing is, like Brother Booker does all these object lessons. It's not just, I mean, maybe he's talented in it or whatever, but it's not just talent. He's put in the work, the research, find the ideas, make them, kind of tweak them, make them his own, buy the stuff, do it, practice it, and you got to practice beforehand. Um, Practice it and do it. And so we have a guy that Brother Brennan in our Sunday school, and he loves the object lesson. So he's trying to start doing more of them in our Sunday school. He is talented, very talented musically and actor and everything. But so he's got this fire thing that he does. He'll eat the fire, and then he also has this where he like puts this fluid in his mouth, and then he lights it and spits a big fireball out. So the other day, and it's been a few weeks ago, but it was last minute. So he's done it before, he knows how to do it. And so it was last minute, and we were going to do, it was the Pharaoh's cup. And so he was the butler, the story of the butler and the baker getting thrown in prison. So he was going to hand him the cup, and he told him, he's like, don't drink this. And he told him, he's like, and he was going to take a drink and then spit the fire, like, oh yeah, that's nasty, and get thrown in jail. Well, he grabbed the stuff off the shelf and he runs out there. And so I'm going to turn the lights off right when he does it, so it looks really, really cool. And so I'm over there, and he goes to do it. I turn the lights off. Nothing happens. You see this little flicker of the lighter. Nothing happens. They're like, oh no. So then he lit the other thing and ate the fire instead. So that was cool. Well, he comes back. What happened is he went backstage and he tried it again. And he found out that the cup that he had on there that says "Do not drink," somebody had put water in it, like dumped it out, put water in the cup. And so no wonder it wasn't working. It's supposed to be lighter fluid or something like that. So anyway, got to practice. I don't know what that had to do with anything, but all right. So what do we got? 8 minutes? Okay. So here's the thing: is you can build momentum if you get started. You can build momentum, and momentum is something that's really interesting. If you can get momentum, that does lead to things like the kids getting the Holy Ghost and all those unquantifiable things. Because when you build momentum, it's crazy. It's infectious. The rest of the team is like, oh yeah, we're on board, and it can even spread to the church. The church is like, what's going on in Sunday school? And so if you can build that momentum, but the way you build momentum is you get started. You have to get the ball rolling. You can't just like, oh, that would be cool. Yeah, we're gonna do that. No, you got to start. You got to start today. Okay, and then there is a balance. And so talking about good ideas and bad ideas, there's a balance. Count the cost. The Bible talks about counting the cost, but have a bias toward action. So I naturally have a bias toward, let's plan this. Okay, let's plan this some more. Let's plan every detail of this. Let's really get down to the nitty gritty. What color socks should the actors wear? Okay, so I have a bias towards that, and so I have to push myself to say, okay, let's just do this. And what's funny is I'll be talking to somebody about theme or whatever, or I'll have a work day for Sunday school. We'll have some people come. I'm like, okay, we're gonna get all this stuff done. And then I'll have a couple of people like, what would be cool is it? And as soon as you hear that, well, what would be cool? It's like, okay, yeah, that is, but let's get this net up because we got to get this work done. So have a bias toward action, do some research, but don't get paralysis by analysis. Don't get paralyzed by analyzing. Just get the ball rolling and start today. All right, so that's kind of it, and we did some questions and answers. I guess the final thing that I'll say is I feel like most people probably that you look at and say they are so talented, and the two easiest things to look at are music and sports, but those are the easiest things to measure. But when you look at people that are talented, even speaking or whatever, most of those people, I would venture to say, don't feel talented. They just feel like another Joe Blow, so to speak. They don't feel like they're anything special. And so I say that because I think that sometimes we can look at people and say, wow, man, I wish I could do what they do. You can. That's the biggest thing I want you to take away from this. That and get started today. But the biggest thing I want you to take away from this is that you can do it. I mean, you look at Brother Booker and all the object lessons like how, and you're doing a session on that, right? So you look at all like, oh, I can't do. I'm scared of fire. I can't do object lessons. I mean, he's got videos on. You can do it. You can. And so that's my biggest thing that I want you to take away from this is that you don't have to be quote unquote talented, and talent is so overrated. Most of these people that you think are talented, yeah, they might have a little bit of talent, but they put in the work. That's what it takes. They put in the work to get there. Slides don't build themselves. And most musicians that are really good, they put in a lot of time. Most sports figures that do all kinds of awesome stuff, yeah, they're talented, but they put in hours and hours of work. So, all right, any questions? Anything burning? Comments?
No,
Yeah.
no question. Just one comment on what you said about the people that you see that are so talented. My dad told a story that I'd never heard until like the last month. And the first time he ever preached, everybody in his church was like, I can't believe how good this guy is. He had never preached before in his life. And his first message, everybody was like, wow.
Oh, wow.
He said what they didn't know is that the 4 nights leading up to it, every night he'd go to the church and preach the entire message, start to finish, for 4 nights in a row.
Oh,
nobody there.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
He said that's why I have the confidence in the 5th time to do it.
It was his 5th time.
On that first time is not the first.
It's not the first time. Yeah.
A lot of work is put into practice.
Yep, that's true. That's so true. Practice far outweighs talent any day of the week. In fact, I have, not to throw Brother Aaron that I mentioned earlier under the bus. He does practice, but I have so much more respect for the person that didn't know how to do it and just decided, okay, I'm gonna learn how to do this and I'm gonna be awesome at it. I mean, that to me, one thing is inspiring because it means that I can, but the other thing is it's just like, wow. I mean, that's pretty incredible. They put the time into. I mean, a long time ago we had a bass player at our church, and just totally naturally talented. But my pastor pointed him out and said he will probably never get great because he's not used to having to work at it. He's going to hit a lid where to get to the next level, he's going to have to start working at it. And he's never going to get better because he's not used to working at it. Or if you take somebody like me that barely knows the notes, and I know that I got to work on it. I'm used day one. I'm having to work on it hard. So when we get to this level, it's just working on it hard. That's what we do is work on it hard. And so practice and hard work, it far outweighs talent. Okay, look at that, 3:49. I went over by like 3 minutes over there. Brother Hodge was kicking me out. So there we go. Thank you, everybody. Hope it was helpful.